In 1850, Chicago was a city built on a mistake. A flat, wet, sinking swamp.
The streets were so muddy that horses were drowning in front of the post office. Literally.
They forgot they were in a swamp. They kept building bigger, heavier, faster. Gravity was just taking a nap.
More! We need more city!
The swamp is still there, waiting.
A sandwich from 1858. The first piece of Chicago's hidden history.
George Pullman proved that if you have enough jacks, you can lift anything, even an entire city's ego.
Solid as a rock, or at least solid as a brick on a jack.
You can lift the buildings, but the swamp is patient. A monumental cover-up.
Out of sight, out of mind. It's a swamp, not the jungle. Chicago is still thirsty.
No drainage meant one thing: cholera. Chicago was dying of its own filth.
Sir, the city is higher, but the people are still sick. At least they're closer to the sun.
I'm still here, George. I'm just climbing the stairs.
A monumental failure of foresight. A tragic success for the jackmakers.
The city council had a crazy idea. If we can't drain the water, we'll just move the city up.
Enter George Pullman. He wasn't a city planner. He was a man who saw a profit in gravity.
I'm a genius. I'm George Pullman.
This is my scepter, and Chicago is my kingdom.
He didn't just lift the city, he owned it.
Finally, Chicago had something solid to stand on. For about 10 minutes. The hotel was built on wet logs. George Pullman said, "No problem. Give me 6,000 jacks."
6,000 screw jacks, each one controlled by a man waiting for a whistle.
We need more power. And more tea for the guests. Shiny, heavy, and used to tighten everything. We're 2 inches off. The whole block is leaning. It adds character. Charge them extra for the slant.
George Pullman's first big test, the Tremont House. 5,000 tons of luxury, sinking in the mud.
Coordination was key. If one man turned too fast, the whole hotel would snap like a cracker.
Turn, wait. Turn, wait. The heartbeat of the lift.
Precision work in the middle of a swamp. George Pullman demanded perfection.
1 turn of the screw. 1 millimeter of progress. The most expensive slow-motion movie in history.
The sound of a city's spine being stretched.
They called it the 8th wonder of the world, or the most expensive way to avoid a bath.
Building the new world on top of the old mud.
You can't lift a building if the ground is soup. A monumental engineering headache.
There. Now lift.
The sound of stone meeting steel.
That's the sound of the jacklock being engaged.
The rhythm of the 1850s.
The sound of a dream meeting reality, one screw at a time.
POP. A 5,000-ton warning shot. The sound of a budget exploding.
Wait, that's not right. Just push it a little to the north.
The jacks were groaning. The wood was screaming. George Pullman just smiled.
George Pullman insisted the hotel stay open. Guests were eating dinner while the building climbed to heaven.
Service with a smile. And a 5,000-ton building over your head.
George Pullman's greatest trick, a lift so smooth you didn't even spill your drink. A rare win for George Pullman. His next projects wouldn't be so lucky.
I'm still alive, and I've got a lot of overtime.
It worked. 5,000 tons moved 6 feet up without breaking a single window. We did it! Now, where's the bathroom?
A monumental oversight in the name of progress.
Now that the buildings were up, they needed sewers. But the sewers were still in the mud. A monumental plumbing fiasco.
Don't look down! Seriously! Oops. Sorry, George.
The true scent of 1858.
Candles only, please. We don't want to blow up the miracle. Watch the drapes, Margaret.
But the rest of the city was still in the mud. Chicago became a nightmare of different levels.
You know you're in 1858 Chicago when you need a ladder to get to the first floor.
Walking the dog was like climbing a mountain range.
Is that a cliff? No, it's a sidewalk.
Walking home was an extreme sport. One misstep and you're back in the cholera mud.
George Pullman was done with lifting buildings. He wanted to lift the way people slept. But that's another fiasco.
Done with that. Bring me some velvet and wood. The end of the jack-up era.
The view is better, but the stairs are a nightmare.
6 feet. Perfect. Now we just need to lift the other 10 miles.
Getting into a lifted building was a logistical nightmare for the ladies. Help! I'm part of the foundation now. The humidity. The failure. The lack of elevators. Much better. George! Lift me up, George!
George Pullman was the king of the jacks. He was lifting entire blocks at once.
George Pullman didn't just lift them, he rolled them. Moving day was literally moving day.
I liked that view. Can we move it back?
No.
Legend says they're still trying to find the ground floor to this day.
They had a party in the rising hotel, dancing while the world went up.
A monumental gala for a monumental lift. I feel like a giant. A giant with no plumbing.
The sound of a city's ego rising.
George Pullman proved that if you have enough jacks, you can lift anything, even an entire city's ego.
Solid as a rock, or at least solid as a brick on a jack. Subscribe. Don't let your history sink into the mud.
A subscription is a monumental opportunity.
He's a salesman. Don't believe his prices. Smash that like button. It helps us pay for the 6,000 jacks. Cha-ching.
Lifting cities is expensive. Likes are free.
It looked like a city again. But underneath, it was a hollow forest of brick pillars.
Hey, my basement is now a balcony.
George Pullman created a whole new world for the underworld. A monumental oversight.
I love the new renovations, George. The rats were happy. Finally, a city for us. No more drowning. Welcome to Rat Chicago. It's dry. Am I? It's a maze down here. A monumental maze. Just fill it in. We don't want to know.
The sound of an empty city.
George Pullman charged by the inch. And he was moving a lot of inches.
George Pullman made a fortune. Chicago made a debt. A monumental exchange of wealth.
I've got a great idea for a sleeping car next.
One fiasco at a time, George.
The higher you go, the more you smell the swamp. A monumental irony.
Is that the smell of progress, George? He couldn't smell the failure. He only smelled the gold. He was a master of the math. Every inch was a dollar.
Faster than a snail. Slower than a horse. Just right for a tycoon.
We've reached the summit of the street.
The headline that made George Pullman a superstar. And a very rich man. The true elevation of George Pullman.
I look like $1 million, and I'm about to make 2.
It wasn't pretty. It wasn't cheap. But it worked. For a while. George Pullman was the talk of the town. The man who moved the earth.
Extra! Extra! Pullman lifts Chicago! Mud defeated!
The city that refused to sink. The final word on the 1858 budget.
The city is perfect. No more mud.
There was still a lot of mud, Steve.
Tastes like litigation and swamp water.
He's gone. But the buildings are still up there.
To Chicago, the world's most successful vertical fiasco.
Better.
It was the biggest story in the country until the Civil War, which was 20 minutes later.
Arrogance lifted it. Gravity didn't care. George Pullman made a buck.
I just wanted to swallow a hotel.
The accountant just looked at the wrench bill and fainted.
I was a budget. Now I'm a tragic poem about screwjacks.
He's still watching. He still thinks the lift was his greatest hit.
They spent more on the jacks than the city was worth in 1830.
Glup, send, help, and more jacks.
A city on stilts is a city on a barbecue. 1871 was coming for them.
See you in a few years, Chicago. The fuse of history is burning.
They lifted the city, but they forgot where the water was supposed to go. A vacuum of logic.
See you next time the river flows backwards.
Take that, Chicago mud! Take that, mud! We have jacks now!
The city budget just bounced.
Bye!
Lift.
A monumental victory for engineering. A monumental failure for the horse's perspective.
From screwjacks to steel beams, the city keeps rising. But the foundation is still mud. They keep building. They keep lifting. The ego of 1858 is still in the air.
I'm a skyscraper. I don't need a jack.
Because George Pullman isn't turning the wrench anymore.
Rusted. Silent. Holding up history.
10 feet deep? I'm gonna need a taller manager.
Don't touch that! The whole city might drop!
Denied. Go back to Michigan.
It's like a puzzle, and half the pieces are floating.
Old, useful, and easily popped. Just like his next company town.
Goodbye, George. Thanks for the inches.
Check your jacks. Check your ego. Or don't build on a marsh.
The rhythm of $5 million leaving the city treasury.
The lifting is finally over. 2 years later, the city is finally quiet. And very, very high.
We did it! Now, does anyone have some tea?
It still stands. A monumental failure of planning, but a triumph of stubbornness.
A story of triumph. And a lot of metallic creaking.
He left his mark, mostly on the skyline.
And that's the end of the 1858 season.
Gravity always wins, especially when the mud is made of dollars.
Boom!
Look at that. It's practically glowing with George Pullman's hubris.
History is messy, especially in Chicago.
And don't forget to check the ground. Wicked mud out there. Bye-bye.